nightmare that Luigi Mangione is expected to walk into, so to speak, in a matter of minutes. We are not going to have cameras inside, unfortunately, as that is not allowed, but we will make sure to bring you updates as we get them here on Live Now. And following the arrest of Mangione, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people took to social media declaring his innocence. Nearly all of them were complete strangers who had become enamored with the 26-year-old. Crowdfunding pages have raised significant money for Mangione's legal expenses. Videos all over the internet show people talking about their love for the murder suspect, and some have gone as far as to get tattoos of Mangione's face with the words, quote, "Deny, defend, depose." This is far, though, from the first time that Americans have fallen for a suspected killer. I want to talk more about that, so let's bring in Dr. Kimberly Przeszlowski, an assistant professor of criminal justice at Quinnipiac University. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today and help kind of explain this a little bit further.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, first off, the big question I do want to ask you, he's not the first accused criminal that we've seen people become enamored with, right?
No, not at all. We've seen this pattern before. Accused or convicted criminals, especially those tied to heinous or violent acts, they do often spark widespread interest or even, as we see here, gain like a cult-like following. And this isn't just a modern development or a new trend either. It predates the internet.
To what do you attribute the fixation on Mangione? Is there any one thing? Is it a variety of things? Just break that down for me.
It's absolutely not just one thing. It's certainly a mix of things, such as societal influences, human psychology, and cultural trends. But in the case of Mangione, there are a couple things that do stand out above others. So for the first example of this is his actions do tap into widespread frustrations of many in society, and there are some individuals who may feel a type of kinship with him or view him as a symbol of resistance against unpopular organizations. But there is also this documented phenomenon, particularly women who are primary consumers of true crime. These individuals develop romantic fixations about these criminals or on these criminals, and they are heavily influenced by physical appearance, which then distorts, unfortunately, their perceptions of the individual and overshadow any acknowledgement of their violent crimes or violent acts.
Is this a little bit more extreme than we have seen, kind of going back to what we were talking about previous people being, enamored with accused criminals? When you're talking about someone getting a tattoo of a suspect's face with those words on it that were allegedly found in a note or manifesto, so to speak, is that a little bit more extreme than we've seen in the past?
I think that the intensity of this behavior has definitely escalated, and largely as a result of the age of just social media. Digital platforms currently or certainly amplify visibility, and what they do as well is foster parasocial relationships. And what that means is that there are followers who feel a very strong emotional connection to someone who doesn't even know who they are. So I think that what we're seeing is it's much different than it was in the past, and it can quickly snowball. So one person's post on social media or video can inspire essentially a chain reaction where others join in, and ultimately a fan base or a fan community is generated of some sort. So I think it's really here in this case the collective engagement that really makes it more extreme compared to what it was in the past.
You touched on this already, but I want to dive just a little bit deeper into this. The fascination with crime, that includes crime novels, popular true crime podcasts. Is that anything new? Because you're hearing a lot more about them fairly recently, but is that anything new?
So the fascination with crime itself isn't new. I think it's deeply rooted in human curiosity as well as culture. I think historically we've seen the public really enamored by certain things, such as public executions or cases like Jack the Ripper back in the 19th century. So what I think is what's changed is not really our interest in how our interest in crime, but how technology essentially has reshaped how we engage with these individuals. So as you mentioned today, I think streaming platforms, podcasts, social media, all of that has really made true crime content a little bit more immersive, and users and consumers find it more accessible.
I imagine, though, and this is something I want to get your take on, that there are maybe ethical concerns when you think about this as a whole, when you step back and look at the fact that we're talking, in some cases, we do have convicted killers and things of that nature. Obviously, Mangione right now is charged with murder, but has not gone to court. He has not gone to trial. He's just accused at this point. But there are some maybe ethical portions to this, right?
Certainly, and I think, as we all know, point blank, America does have some sort of true crime addiction. And I think what's really important to recognize that, like any addiction, this type of addiction definitely has distinct symptoms. So, emotional obsession with the subject, in this case, Luigi, or the subject matter. And some have a really tough time disconnecting from this type of content. But while this might seem harmless to some, there are, as you mentioned, significant ethical concerns. I think one of those concerns in particular is that this fascination almost with these types of criminals and real life tragedies could potentially lead to the exploitation of victims and families. And what happens in that case is they are unfortunately re-traumatized or re-victimized. So this is definitely a big concern, and we saw this happen really clearly in the release of Netflix's Jeffrey Dahmer series. And I think when we're seeing a lot of this engagement on social media and individuals playing armchair detective from the comfort of their homes, there has been incidents where there are innocent people involved or accused of certain crimes. And so their involvement in the justice system is unfair in a sense. So a lot of ethical concerns, I think, just to give some advice here, is that I think it's really important to first and foremost honor the victims, and I think that we need to acknowledge them more in the process, and just to understand the type of content you're consuming.
All right, Dr. Kimberly Przeszlowski over at Quinnipiac University, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Obviously, it's something that so many people are talking about, so we definitely appreciate you taking the time to be here. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Just thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you again. Have a good rest of your day.
You as well. Bye.